So I just got done watching the first 6 episodes of The Boys Generation V. They didn't provide the last 2 for press, but I have to imagine just coming off the top, this show is surprisingly good. I was not too excited for it. Even as much as I enjoy The Boys as a show, wasn't a huge fan of the comic books, but as a show, I've really much loved Season 1. I enjoyed Season 2. Season 3 almost lost me, but it really came back at the end. And for me, Generation V, I was just kind of worried that it was going to be an edgy, sky-high, rated R, and just kids in college doing their shit with their powers. And surprisingly, it is not that. It definitely has the edginess to it. It definitely has the boys' tone to it with all the rated R, the gore, the blood, and all the surprises with that. And definitely the shocking moments, because if you follow me on Twitter, you saw that I posted a selfie of my jaw hanging open after the first 20 minutes of the opening episode. And it stood there for quite a while after you start to see some revelations of certain main characters. And I just sat there. I was like, okay, we're starting out. Gets your attention right off the bat. Like the first episode of The Boys ever with Huey and his girlfriend. I mean, it was a great opening. And I was excited to see where the rest of the show went. But I was still worried, a little trepidatious in the back of my head that this could just end up being what I was worried about. And so far, it's not. Certain instances it can be. What it really relates to is humanizing characters with powers. And we're getting to follow characters who are literally the main characters. We don't really follow any of the villains or anything like this. We just follow these heroes trying to figure out this conspiracy, which there's always conspiracies going on in the world of Vought and everything. We'll follow characters that are still trying to understand their powers and come to terms with all those powers. And I think that's the thing that actually gripped me, was the fact that each and every one of the characters, even if there's one that you don't really like from the start, you start to really come to love them towards the back half. And this, of course, will be a non-spoiler review for the first 6 episodes. I'm not going to get any deeper into this. Overall, I'm really liking the show. I think it's surprisingly great. It's better than anything that I thought it was going to be. And again, if for some reason 7 and 8 are awful, I will absolutely redo an update on this video. But as of right now, this show can only get better and better because each episode gets better and better than the last. I'm very excited to talk about Gen V today, so make sure to leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button for more. Are you a fan of The Boys? Are you over it? Are you excited for this spinoff? Let me know down below. Like I mentioned, this comes from the world of The Boys, which comes Generation V, which explores the first generation of superheroes to know that their superpowers are from Compound V. These heroes put their physical and moral boundaries to the test, competing for the school's top ranking. Now, that's just a little bit without getting into spoilers. To be honest, I don't want to dive into more of it, but there's a conspiracy going on at this college that you would assume is going there. And the way that these kids all intersect are the reasons that it kind of just starts to blow up a little bit. And within the first 6 episodes, you kind of start to understand what they're doing and what's going on at this school. And for me, what I really love, though, and going back to this, is the characters. Because we know in the world of The Boys and Vought, we know that there are going to be conspiracies and everything of that nature. It's nothing new. You know exactly what you're getting when watching this show. But like I said, surprisingly, it's the characters that actually really won me over. And every single one of them kind of started to become one of my favorite characters in The Boys world. And as well as the way that they actually intersected and created a lot of the episodes. Because for the first 4 episodes, it's about the same stuff that you've seen from The Boys, and it's enjoyable for that, and you're watching it because you really like the characters. But once it gets into episode 5 and 6, and I can only imagine 7 and 8 will go in the same direction, they start to create a whole new type of, not even genre, but type of format for this world. And it's easily 2 of the most unique episodes that we have ever seen in The Boys itself. There was one in one of the, either season 2 or season 3 that kind of did the same thing, but it wasn't as much. This episode in particular, these 2 episodes in particular, actually, very much, and it's really hard to talk about it without getting into spoilers, but really much flipped the entire show on its back and kind of reminded me something of Legion, if you ever watched that show on FX, which was fantastic if you didn't. It's all the characters here that really come to their own in this one, and that's where it made me kind of look back at the rest of the series and be like, wow, I really love this. Plus, I really like a lot of the different powers here, specifically Jazz Sinclair, who plays Maria Moreau. I thought she was great. Easily one of the most cheerable characters, even if she has a tragic backstory that you learn about, but her powers of being able to control blood. Just saying that, it can easily make your skin crawl from what you could imagine she could do. And the things that you do see her do, they're very hard to watch at times. Very graphic and exactly what you expect, and it's badass in the same way. But also this other character played by Lizze Broadway, who plays Emma Meyer. They call her the Cricket in here. You can kind of just assume what she does. Her power, also very interesting. But it's the way that both their powers kind of connect to mental health and certain things that I feel like young adults, teenagers, are very much going through on inside their lives. And every single one of the characters in here has a moral dilemma that ties into their powers. And that's actually one of the things that I found to be the most satisfying and smartest way of concluding this. And like one thing I can kind of just talk about is like a little bit of Maria Moreau. She obviously controls blood. She can do different things with blood. So what does she have to do? She has to cut herself quite a bit to get the blood out, start using it as power. That's an interesting dynamic. Obviously, people deal with depression. People have dealt with it with cutting themselves. People have even died from suicide by cutting themselves and in other sorts of ways. And it's very dark in that manner. But the show really touches on that and touches on those aspects that, again, are dark. And The Boys has never been scared to fray away from the dark of it. But I've never seen them actually touch on things like this, or very much shows that deal with like that more high, superficial type stuff, but touching the things like that. And when you start to learn about a little bit more about Lizze Broadway's character, the Cricket, and how she has to use her powers, it's honestly heartbreaking. And I loved how they touched more into that. But going from there, I really, really love Maddie Phillips as Kate Dunn. She was fantastic and really much comes into her own later down the road. Maya Bastella does as Justine. She's great as well. And Perdomo, who plays Andre Anderson, fantastic. And the last but not least, we have London Thor and Derek Louis, who plays Jordan Lee. Plays the same character. I don't want to get more into theirs because I thought that theirs was very interesting, but I love this character of Jordan Lee, and I think a lot of you guys will as well. It kind of just goes back to my big thing is that I'm really liking the entire story of Generation V. It's something that's a conspiracy series. I like that. I like seeing what the conspiracy is, but when you have likable characters that are going through it and showcasing a lot of their unique abilities in this, because it's very much for the boys, we've seen a lot of the same powers for the last 3 seasons, and now we're getting to see some new stuff here too as well, and explore a different area of the world within the boys, as it just feels like this will be a great little tee-off for season 4. Now, we're going to come back to that in a second, but as an issue and a con that I could see them easily doing with the last 2 episodes is just that this series is just set up for season 4. And I really hope it's not that way. If it is, it won't change that I didn't really still like this show, but it is a little bit disappointing because I'm tired of how many shows are now doing that. And it's funny because The Boys is supposed to be a parody on a lot of things like that within the superhero world, and it's starting to become a little bit more like that. So just keep that in mind. If we come back in episode 7 and 8 are very much a tee-off to season 4, and it seems like that's kind of the direction they're heading, and specifically in the way that some of the creatives have talked about the show, I just hope that's not the whole revelation of it. It's like, oh, these characters are coming over to The Boys. I wouldn't be against it, but I'd also be like, why didn't we just do another season of The Boys and intersect these characters in there? I don't know. I'm rambling. Let's get to the next part of this video. Part of this video I do want to talk about is the 2 things that I do primarily really enjoy in the Boys series is, of course, the blood, the gore, the kills, the action, and very much the cynical humor of it all. This series is still going to make your jaw drop. It's going to still make you squirm. It's going to make you feel grossed out like you thought that one guy jumping in another dude's penis and expanding. There's things like that in this series. Absolutely. Like I mentioned, that selfie of me in the first 20 minutes, that's a thing. But there's countless things that are going to make your jaw drop. But not just from the cynical and the sick purposes of it. It's actual genuine twists and turns that you might not see coming. It's genuine kind of differences to the characters and what you start to learn about each and every one of them. And again, episode 5 and 6 very much heavily does that undertaking, and I was impressed with it. I'm just entertained by this show. Also, the thing that actually surprised me was the pacing of this. I know The Boys is typically around 45 to an hour long for each of their episodes, but each and every one of these episodes isn't afraid to go longer, to at least an hour or to 37 minutes if they have to have a shorter thing. The pacing always feels consistent with this show, and it makes it very bingeable. I know the show's going to go week to week, but binging the first 6 episodes, I feel like is a very different experience than watching it week to week. But don't fret, because after each episode, I only planned on watching like 3 episodes a day. I watched all 6 episodes in one sitting. So take that as what you will as well. The way that each episode ended made me want to watch the next one. And by the time I had finished all my screenings, I was like, hey, I need the rest of the season right now. That's how much I was enjoying it. And it's surprisingly good. I just really thought it was going to be a little bit more immature than I was expecting, because that's just kind of how it is. But it very much still has the same consistency as The Boys, and I think for me, if you are a fan of The Boys, you're going to really like this. If you're not and you're over their shtick, this won't change your mind in any way. But if you are someone who's just a big fan of The Boys, this is just more of that goodness of this world, more of the exploration of it, and easily likable characters that you're going to fall in love with. That's the biggest surprise for me. So Generation V, it's a success. I hope they don't get too far ahead of themselves with doing too many spin-offs, but I think this is a core, clear, definitive thing that really fits nicely in this world and gives me enough stuff to root for. But again, I can't get enough to it. I really think the entire cast is the big standout here. Jazz Sinclair, Lizze Broadway, London Thor, Derek Liu, Maddie Phillips, and Chance Perdomo. All of them are fantastic. Can't wait to see more of them in the last 2 episodes. So that's my review of Generation V. As of right now, I'm going to give this series an A-. I'm very much invested into this. I hope the last 2 episodes can really much deal that. If for some reason they can't, you'll get back an updated video. But of course, until next time, guys, stay classy.